challenging to be able to say that most of the people are wrong and most of the people are in the wrong direction. And the remark is, so you are the only one who knows what is right. It could be. Galileo was the only person who knew what is right. Newton was the only person who knew what is right. Just because millions of people think something, that doesn't become right. So, what we are trying to do, this approach to what is worth learning, is to say that if we look at the future of our children and our grandchildren, our nephews and nieces, what education would we want to give them? The fact that there is something going on by the system is there. It's your courage. How much can you dissociate with the system? Can you go all the way to homeschooling? Or like us, what we do is we do both. So we do this formal part because that is required, and then we do our part because this is what we really think is of value. And this is a very interesting thing. Sometimes this is a typical thing of the Hindu way of life. That you are able to reconcile two things, one which you do for your profession or external need, but you know that is not the real stuff. The real stuff is what you do elsewhere and in your private life and whatever. This is becoming very, very serious, and I can only have sympathy for those 95% of the people who will have no future. Because time and again warnings have been given. And these are not warnings of cynical people. I've shown this slide for last year and a half, where our Bharat Ratna Skener Rao said 90% of university curricula are out of date. And he said this not here in a private room, he said this in Rashtrapati Bhavan, and the president is the visitor of all universities, central universities. But the point is we just refuse to do anything after that. Neither do we criticize CLR Rao for saying, no, 90% is not right. It is, now they cannot say, well, it is probably 99%. And he has said 9%, so they are happy that it is there. The second thing that has happened, and if you, in the posting which I did for my WhatsApp course, I talk about the famous story of Einstein. So when Einstein was a teacher in Princeton, he was trying to set question paper, so he set up a question paper, gave his, typically in universities you give it to your teaching assistant, he makes copies and distributes it, and so on and so forth. There are only 15-20 students, so it doesn't go for massive printing or whatever. And the teaching assistant looked at it and said, sir, but isn't this the same question paper which you gave last year? He said, yes, it is. Then he says, so how can you give the same paper again and again? He said, because the answers have changed. And of course, the reason answers have changed is because 1905, Einstein do the special theory of relativity, the general theory of relativity, the Brownian movement, the photoelectric effect, each of which was worth Nobel Prize and disrupting. So that was the context. But I have put this question, what is worth learning, in that same category. The question is the same, but the answers have changed. And in the WhatsApp group, I've given an example of a very brilliant Harvard University Vice Chancellor who created something called 5 foot of shelf space. His name was Eliot. He said, if you read 15 minutes a day, these set of books, you will be a very well educated in the liberal arts. So the reason I wanted to say is that today, all that is of no great use. But the idea that there is something that you study 30 minutes a day or 45 minutes a day to become a well-educated man is still right. And we need to look at what it would be now. The biggest problem is that we are not taking cognizance of it in a national way, state way, large group way, whatever. It's only individual efforts that can happen. And even there it is very difficult for people to appreciate that. For example, one of the things that I have observed now over a long time, we have still believe in the sanctity of the classroom. I am so amazed that there are so many people doing e-learning and you have looked at them. They want to simulate the classroom. They assume the classroom is the best method of teaching. To me, classroom, like democracy, is the least of the evil forms of teaching because it serves nobody. And you see the result, you get a bell distribution. So if the classroom is a good thing, why should you get a bell distribution? The classroom is the most inefficient way of teaching. And this is acknowledged. This is Bloom has caused this question that Bloom says the best teaching is one-on-one. And can we have massive education so that you get the same results? Called as Bloom's 2 sigma problem. But we have somehow got into our head that and attending classes is very important. The thing that I am learning, and I've been a teacher now for 50 years and I was studied for about 20, 30 years, the classroom is the most inadequate method of teaching that is possible. Earlier the problem was there was no alternative to a classroom which could scale up. So you could either go to the person, be at the feet of the masters and learn from them. How do you scale it? Technology today allows you to do that in many, many ways. So technology-driven educational system is far superior to any classroom. But the problem that has been is that the classroom is so dominant that even the technology all they want to create, they call it a virtual classroom. They call it something else. But classroom idea itself is wrong. Two things. First, the classroom assumes basically a central person who knows everything and others who are ignorant. No classroom is like that where all the students know nothing and only the teacher knows something. All of them know something or the other. And during that period, you have said nobody else will be speaking except this. Then you try to build an interactivity, which is completely meaningless. The other thing that we have in the classroom is we have synchronicity. So the class will be from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Synchronicity is an absurd idea in education because the pace at which the knowledgeable person is thinking or talking or whatever will never match the pace of the learners. And therefore, the two people are at different paces of learning and knowledge exploration. So you said that you do that. And this is not just my fancy idea. Salman Khan in his book, which is the One World Book House and it's become very famous. Salman Khan started like this. He first spoke to his niece Nadira in simultaneity. So web conferencing. And the girl did not understand much. Because Salman Khan was an MIT engineer and the girl was a class 8 student. Then it occurred to Salman Khan that instead of talking live, why don't I record my videos and send it to her so she can replay the video at her own convenient time, go back and forth, etc. And immediately the learning improved because it was no longer synchronous. In synchronicity, that poor girl is to keep pace with Salman Khan and can't keep pace. And this fellow can never come down to a class 8 student because he's completely forgotten what a class 8 student looks like, works like, and every individual is different. So the whole point is when we are looking at teaching, we're looking at completely new models as well and the content. One of the big fallacies of school education is the assumption that if you don't learn it now, you will never be able to learn it in life. So when you are in class 8, I must teach you Pythagoras theorem because if you don't learn it then, you will never be able to learn. This is also a fallacy. There are so many things you can learn in adulthood and maybe learn faster, learn better because you have also got a reason for learning stimulation. So this is what most people are trying to say. My view on this is something even more fundamental, saying that content is not important. What do we want the person to be able to process as a learning thing? So what is the level of complexity that the person can deal with is a very important part. So you can say that when a person enters school, he's a 5, 6, 7-year-old child. When he grows out of school, he's an 18-year-old adult. When he grows out of professional thing, he's a 21 to 20-year-old professional. So childhood to adult, adult to professional. And then 2025 is about to find his own place in the world. What are the things that are not what books you have studied? Also, in my WhatsApp course, I've talked about this Harvard Classics, but it leads to a certain debate. So we put the debating points. So it's a very interesting thing, and I want you to now start taking this. Is it better to read original books, or is it better to read textbooks? And this is a big issue that has come out because in the so this is, let me begin with this. We'll hold on to this question, think about it, and then when we can have a tea break, we'll come And also start thinking, because each of you will have to make a small video recording based on these or any other point that you want. We want to capture your views on what is worth. So this is the thing which I deliberately put there. The Harvard Classics idea is if you read these books, you will become a well-educated person. And I remember that somebody in that group started saying, but you can get summaries from here, or you can get Blinkist, or you can do that. Now, this is a very interesting debate, that whether it is better to read the original books, or is it okay if somebody just tells you the essence of the book. The question is, if you have the essence of the book, and was he an idiot to write it in 1,000 pages? So you try to summarize the book for him and this thing. But then the people we are talking about, great learned people. So why is Francis Bacon taking 5 pages to say something which can be said in 5 lines? I think this is something which we need to do. I would seriously want you to do, because I think this is the big problem. And I have a serious objection to so many people. We have made learning easy. We have made it fun. We have made it this. To me, these are all wrong. Because by doing that, actually you bypass learning. I think that is the important question. So I remember when we were young, in our time there was not so much available, but there was something like last 10 years question papers. There would be solved papers and unsolved papers. And we were completely prohibited from looking at the solved papers. Unsolved papers we could look at, but even that was not encouraged. The idea was you learn what is to be learned, not what papers are talking about. Solved papers were, and they used to be so-called keys and made easy and so on. In fact, I just now noticed somebody has launched a school called Made Easy School. And even in UK, there's Cliff's Notes and this, that, where they will explain everything. So you don't have to read Shakespeare's play. Cliff Notes will tell you what is about, what is the summary, what is the key idea, what are the main characters, etc. It's an important thing, because what people are now realizing, that it is not the conclusion that is there. It is the process of learning. And in many times, by trying to make it easy, learning doesn't happen. And if you are only looking at certain facts to be repeated, that's not learning. So, and this is where this issue has started coming, that people who have had that easy bypass route are not ready to learn more, because they have done that. But people who have not had that bypass route actually learned. They continue to want to learn and are happy to have learning opportunities. So all parents who are doing this thing, using those easy things, this, that, whatever is Baiju and Maiju and Baiju, they're actually destroying their children. And the challenge now is, it is not about quickly getting somewhere and passing an exams. Because even after retirement, you have another 25 years to 30 years of life to live. And this is, to me now, for example, my key theme would be learning for old age. So when you are in school, are you being equipped? So I actually, recently I was asked to go to some institution, and there was this induction program. They were saying you will get this placement, this company came in. I said, don't ask them about placement. Ask them after retirement, will you be any good for anything? It's a very different game today. So, and I'm saying this theoretically. I have senior colleagues of mine from IIT who have drawn pension for more years than they drew salary. So they did their PhD, postdoc, at about 40, they become faculty in IIT Kanpur. They retired at 60. 20 years of working. Today they are 85. Still quite comfortable, confident, etc., etc. So are you being prepared for that life? If you bypass into the shortcut, you won't. In food, we have started looking at that. Suddenly you will see that everybody is talking whole grain, this, that, not fast food, not junk food, etc., etc. What about your mind? Why do you want fast food for your mind? Where you just learn something, pass the exam. I mean, so many people learn Sanskrit because it gives you good marks. They have no interest in thing. They will say that, oh, Sanskrit में high marks मिलता है. उसके बाद इम्तिहान हो गया, marks हो गया, they never look at it again. So this is no point, and again there is no point, because I am perfectly okay with just one challenge in life, and you use something to overcome it. That's fine. See, in sports, why is doping considered bad in sports? I have still not understood. Why is doping considered bad in sports? And huge things happen. Scandal, this, that. If doping is bad in sports, then coaching and tutoring is bad in schooling. Same reason. See, you are taking IIT entrance exam with your natural abilities. He has got that Akash tutorial helping him in doing that. Is that not doping?
Right.
Right? So therefore, if doping is banned in sports, then all tuition, all extra support should also be banned. So after all, what is doping? A few chemicals which make you do better, right? So here are a few injections, and for which you pay lakhs of rupees, and you are acknowledging it helps you do better. So it's not a level playing field. So this is a very interesting kind of. So what I am trying to say, and most people don't understand, that times have changed. There are two things. We are in a long lived society, so we're going to live longer, for which surely the biological part is important. You have to be healthy for longer, but you have to be mentally active also for longer. And therefore, the capabilities of learning, becoming a listening learner, become. So therefore, the shortcut that Blinkist to tell me 5 minutes is of no serious use. It is good. I mean, if tomorrow morning you have to be somebody and you have to also appear to be knowledgeable, there is no problem. This is perfectly all right. But if you're looking at your own self, it is not a good thing because you will eventually find that you will not be able to live up to do that. I've said the story in many other forums, but there is one set of people in India, you might be knowing, who will talk on anything as if they know everything, but they know only surface. They don't know definition in computer, and very often they only know the expansion. So you say RAM, random access memory, but after that they know nothing. Something else, they know the definition, expansion, and after that they know nothing else. And we have a lot of such people. They get away because nobody. So one of such person, he finally, because of his all resources, got admission to a UK university and went to the university and had his first meeting with the professor. And he tried to use the number and he thought that the professor is very impressed with all his knowledge and so on. And the professor said, "You are amazing." So he was again very pleased that the professor thinks that I am very good. He said, "You are amazing that your lack of knowledge of the subject did not come in the way of your speaking about it." So this is the thing that will happen because if you meet a knowledgeable person, they will realize that you haven't learned anything and you don't really know anything. I think we are looking at something of that kind. Let me touch to some of these questions so that after that you can come and you don't have to respond to this as a paper. These are some ideas. Next. So what books, TED Talks and other web resources would you recommend and use? So I'm saying the Harvard thing was that if you give 15 minutes a day over a year, you will learn so much. Equivalent of a BA degree. I am not talking of that because firstly, the change that has happened, he was saying you do this for 1 year, it will last a lifetime. That won't happen today. We are talking lifelong learning. So I'm saying if you devote 5 hours per week for learning something new to keep yourself a lifelong learner, what would you recommend to people? That ye to dekha hona chahiye. So what TEDx talk, what books, what web resources, it could be a debate on BBC, whatever. And I'm interested that if we could create such capsules of weekly reads, then people could benefit from that. So very often you see in TED Talk, there will be a playlist of machine learning. So you can decide this week I will study machine learning and I will watch these videos and I will get it. And then it can go more and more. So that is something in which, because broadly saying you must keep learning all your life, have no guidance for it is not easy. You want to improve your language? Here are certain things. You want to know more about something else? Here is. You want to know critical thinking? Here's. So I am taking 5 hours per week to give an idea of a serious learner. At least 40 minutes a day he wants. He can do it in 3 spirits of 15 minutes, 15. But less than that, I think there is no, he doesn't fit in our kind of category. Very simple, I have no hesitation in saying that there's only a few who will learn and keep on learning who will improve. So just keep thinking on this. Next. The other thing is I learned all this. How do I share my learning? Because if you don't share your learning, it won't remain with you for a while. You would have learned it, you would have forgotten. So there has to be some model whereby, in a sense, we are saying we are creating a set of things for lifelong learners. And what can they do? And these are just starting thoughts. Next. Your views on synchronous versus asynchronous. I just now said that I am not convinced that asynchronous learning is better than synchronous because, and I've said this in my post, I'm running a WhatsApp group. The very first post, I talked about a Harvard experiment of gorilla in the classroom. And then I talked of Bloom's taxonomy. There was somebody in the group who immediately said, I don't know this. He went from that, got the video, posted it for everybody, that this is about gorilla in the classroom. So that is a very interesting example of being able to do things like this. Now in synchronous, I've talked about this, use this thing and you leave it and nothing will happen. And similarly, Bloom's taxonomy, somebody picked up, then other explained, then somebody else explained, and then somebody said, I saw this diagram, this is very confusing. Somebody explained why that diagram is confusing. So I am getting more and more convinced that this is a far superior method of learning, which people have ignored or they don't know how to use it. But this thing about Bloom's taxonomy was very interesting. How quickly 3-4 people came up, talked their things, etc., explained. And same thing with gorilla in the class, because that's an experiment with one set of people know, but others don't. And immediately somebody who also said she didn't know, picked it up, got the link, showed it to everybody, the whole thing happens. This is, in my view, a very, very powerful part of this. The two things have happened now. One, it is asynchronous. Second is a heterogeneous group. Our traditional education is a very homogeneous group. Similar age, similar marks, similar abilities, and who till the last class have studied the same thing, it's a very homogeneous group. So we've got used to teaching a homogeneous group. But if you start looking at teaching a heterogeneous group, different interests, different knowledge, you need to do something of this kind. So that's another one. And so I tried to say that when we're looking at what is worth learning, each one will have its own combination of perennial skills, contemporary skills, and urgent skills. So these two things are like urgent things. That I'm reading this, what is gorilla? What is Bloom's taxonomy? This is urgent. The timeless life skills could be learning to learn, learning to think, reading with comprehension, whatever. So I want to create a set of information bases which is coming from the wisdom of the community that we have. So I want all of you to suggest what do you think in your view are 3 timeless skills, few contemporary skills, and urgent will depend upon the context. Next. This is a very important issue. You also reacted to it. See, with respect to learning, one of the things is traditional view is the Jeremy Bentham utilitarian value. Also, John Stuart Mill said this. If I've learned this, what is the use? And typically now people use marketability and so on. On the other hand was Socrates, who learned to play a new tune on the eve before he was dying, and he knew he's dying tomorrow morning. And when people ask, so what's the use of learning? This is because I've learned one more thing before I die. So that's one approach. I will continue learning, and I've learned one more thing before I die. Third is Bertrand Russell, who talked about useless knowledge. He kind of disagreed with the utilitarian value and said knowledge can be very interesting, it can be liberating, it can be this thing, literature, philosophy, they may not have immediate commercial value, and so on. Reality is something else. Reality is that what may not have commercial value yesterday can start having commercial value tomorrow. So we have seen this most in the case of mathematics, for example. Mathematics of, let us say, complex numbers, imaginary numbers, loops of knowing what is the use of square root of -1. But all electrical engineering cannot move without I being there. So similarly, prime numbers, what use could have, whether a number is a prime number, whether it can be factorized or not. Today, all your security things, cyber security is based on factorizing of prime numbers as one technique. So there are so many things which, which time can move. And these days I've been telling technical people who are working in machine learning. And so what is happening is chatbots are one of the biggest applications of machine learning nowadays. You speak to the computer and the computer does something. And there's a very nice story going around. You can Google to know more. That somebody flew Indigo Airlines from Bhubaneswar to Bombay, but his baggage was sent to Calcutta. So in a kind of a satirical tone, he said, "Thank you, Indigo Airlines, for sending me to Bombay and my luggage to Calcutta." This was a chatbot. He did not understand. He said, "Okay, we are delighted that we had a great experience," and so on and so forth. And this is all over this thing about it. So this is the problem. So I was telling the people that these are all, they are not civil engineers, just engineers who know how to code. They know R, Hadoop, this, that, IBM, WhatsApp, you know. So I said, when you were in school, the thing to which you would have paid least attention would be parsing of sentences, either in English or in Hindi. In English, it was noun, pronoun, verb, adverb, adjective, then preposition, conjunction, this, that, whatever. In Hindi, it is the same thing, karta ne, karan ko, adhikaran mein, nani ne, mahmi, whatever. But none of us like. I said, I have no hesitation, we are all the same type, none of us like this. But today, that is the first thing, because when an utterance is made, from that you capture the intent, it has to be parsed. And humans say things in many different ways. Human language has many different things. So earlier what happens is, there's a business issue, there's computer people, there is in between a senior computer professional who translates that issue for you, tells you उस फाइल में चले जाना, वहाँ चले जाना, वो फाइल का रिपोर्ट बनाना, उसको जो है ऐसे फॉर्मेट कर देना या crystal report use करना, and then he takes it to the business part. Not to the business is directly talking. And this is your, so you know all the coding, all the writing of equations and formulas and so on. But the first thing of what was said to convert, very simple example, the trophy was, no, the trophy couldn't fit into the suitcase because it was too large. So what is large? The trophy is large. The trophy could not fit into the suitcase because it was too small. I only changed the last word from large to small. Now the suitcase has become small. How do you get a computer to understand this? So these are some of the things. So when I'm talking about what is worth learning, and we were talking about something which looks like useless knowledge, most people, but what is the use of it? And I had this problem. Sometimes I went to school, class 12 children telling me, "Sir, they waste a lot of time teaching us English poetry and all that." And they thought I am a science or computer person. I gave a big lecture on how important poetry is, how useful poetry is, how your emotion and ethos, etc., comes out because of poetry, and you would be completely dehumanized person if you did not appreciate poetry, and so on. So this is the other issue. So at one level, and now there's the big challenge. At one level, everything is worth knowing, and the joy is that you don't know when it will be useful. At the other hand, when you have so much to learn, what would you really want to learn? And that's why this question is so important. So what is worth learning? So